Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Devotions. Pastor Steve here, walking with you, diving deeper into the disciples, and we only have three left. And two of them are really, I can't say insignificant, because they are very significant, called by Jesus, with Jesus in his ministry, did missionary work, died as martyrs. Well, two of them did, because we're going to have Judas Iscariot at the end here, as he's always listed last, and that's well known for the reasons, because these writings are written later, and so they know the happenings, they know the perception, and Judas Iscariot is always listed last. Not even listed in Acts chapter 1, as I want to read here, because he wasn't an apostle. He wasn't one that was sent. He was a disciple of Jesus. But right now we're kind of honing in on one of the disciples, one of the three last ones, as I say here, pretty insignificant that we see in scriptures. He wasn't mentioned much, and there's actually some varying, just as we had yesterday with some of the names of being able to talk about James and who was James. This is now, it says in Acts chapter 1, as it lists all these disciples, those present were the apostles, and we need somebody to replace Judas, because he took his life. It was Peter, John, James, and Andrew, Philip, and Thomas, Bartholomew, Nathaniel, in other ways, and Matthew, James, son of Alphaeus, we talked about that yesterday, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas, son of James. Now, I'm going to come back to Simon the Zealot tomorrow, but we're going to rest here quickly on Judas, son of James. Now, Judas, also synonymous with that infamous Judas. And so we see that throughout other lists. Actually, we go to Matthew 10 or Mark chapter 3, you'll get to see he's listed under a different name, a nickname, they would say, and that's called Thaddeus. Thaddeus was a name meaning courageous in heart. And so when we look at Judas, son of James, also known as, a lot of times people shorten that, and that was actually in some manuscripts early on in the church, was that Judas, son of James, was known as Jude. Jude. Now, that even throws a little bigger wrench into who is Judas, son of James. They know that it's synonymous with Thaddeus, courageous in heart, and a nickname that was given there, probably because the association, as I said, written later. Gospels are written later in the 60s and 70s, 30 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus, but also 30 years after Judas taking his life and actually hanging himself in the field of blood, Akama, right? And as we get to see here, there was an appointment in Acts chapter 1 to replace Judas, not Jude or Thaddeus, but to replace Judas, son of Iscariot, Judas of Iscariot. And so within that, we get to see Jude and Thaddeus being the same person. Now, here's the thing that we always want to uncover in the early church, is that Jude was a really popular name. Jesus had a brother named Jude, who we believe is the one who wrote the epistle Jude, one of the shortest books in the Bible. So there's that association. Some people say, could it be a brother? Just as we were talking about yesterday, James, son of Alphaeus. But is it James the Less? Is it James, the brother of Jesus? Most likely not. I'm not going to go back and hash out that video. You can look at it yesterday. But Jude, being most likely not the brother of Jesus and the writer of the epistle of Jude, because Jude was a disciple. Jude was an apostle, and we get to see the popular name of Jude, and we get to see that Thaddeus was written more about in history and what he all came to be. And so, as I said, insignificant questions back and forth. We're not quite sure, but I'll rest assured again. I'm going to rest back to what we talked about yesterday. Doesn't really matter, pinpoint who he was, what he did, all those kind of things. We know that one of the most significant things that he was called by Jesus and one of his disciples and one of his apostles. He was a missionary. We know that Thaddeus, Jude, was a missionary, an apostle, as it says here. Judas, son of James, actually went up north into Syria and Macedonia and did missionary work up there, impacted the church up there. He also died a martyr's death. He died a martyr's death that in Syria, what we know, what tradition speaks towards, is that he got axed. Excuse me. He got axed, meaning, once again, they would take an axe-like instrument and take that upon the person. Pretty gruesome, pretty nasty. He was calling out idolatry. He was calling out worshiping of idols up in the north area. And as he did that, the people didn't like that truth. And so they took care of that with a martyr's death. For Judas, son of James, for Thaddeus, for Jude, all the same person. What do people call you? What do people know you for? Once again, I know this is going to be a shortened version, but I pray that you're known for speaking the truth in love. I pray that you're known for being a follower of Jesus. And they can call you whatever name they want. Sometimes derogatory and sometimes bad perceptions and sometimes great things. But I pray they know you and call you as a disciple, follower of Jesus. And that your confession, that your life would actually live upon that confession that Jesus is my Savior. I need to profess this truth. I need to do what's best for that other, and that's always being able to witness who Jesus is. And so, I could read to you the lists. I could read to you the names of Thaddeus, Judas, son of James, or Jude. We have Matthew 10, we have Mark 3, we have Acts 1. There's 4 different descriptions because there's one in Luke as well. But it gives you a not in-depth description of who this person is. But that's okay. We get to hear throughout history that no matter who he was, no matter how he was named, he lived for Jesus. He died for Jesus. And he lives eternally because of the faith that he has in Jesus. Live for Jesus. Live out the gospel in Jesus. Be bold and courageous in your faith for Jesus. And you too will have the crown of everlasting life. Have a blessed day.